Hi, everybody. It's Shirley Turcott here for part two of Black Lives Matter and Indigenous Focusing-Oriented Therapy. Just to say something about yesterday's video with Dara, I just need to qualify that 340 plus thousand Indigenous peoples were enslaved alongside Black peoples. And one of the edges that Indigenous peoples had was their relationship to the land and their knowing of the land. So they had a bit of a leg up. When they ran away, they knew where to run, how to hide, where to get their needs met from the land itself, which was something much more difficult for the Black population. And I want to say that in Canada, of course, the systemic racism is horrible, horrible. And this week we lost two people on wellness checks. Chantel Moore, just a couple days ago, was shot by a police officer coming out of her home with a knife. There are ways that she could have been disarmed. She didn't need to be killed. And also Regis Kanitsky-Pequet, who jumped off a balcony, being on a wellness, when police were after her on a wellness check. We die in alarming numbers. It's not safe. Women are raped. Indigenous peoples are driven to the outskirts to die in the freezing winters and made to walk home, and many of them don't make it. They're thrown in rivers. We are constantly under siege. Women's bodies are not safe. They often have to trade sexual favors just for freedom in the back of police cars. So please know that this is not a US problem, although I have a lot of US guests here. I'd like to start to introduce Beatrice Hyacinthe. Give us a wave, Bea. And I think we all know Bea because we've all been sending her medicines because she just made it through the pandemic, through COVID, right? And I know we've made it through many, many, many pandemics, and many of us have died through many, many, many pandemics. So pandemics are not new for us. And I'd also want to introduce Dr. Damalia Gibson. Hi, Damalia. And
hi.
Hi. And Isabelle, Adon. Isabelle, good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good afternoon now. Yeah, so this is our IFOT team. They work out of New York. They are all IFOT instructors. And you would find them a lot in Minneapolis and in Duluth and in Minnesota, where we run IFOT programs. And they are our core helpers in that area and teachers. And they also have been helping tremendously in Toronto, where we're just going to graduate an IFOT class here in downtown Toronto, where the New York people have come up to help us with the coaching and the teaching. And we will be graduating that group next week, actually, the first online IFOT group to graduate. So we're very happy about that. So Bea, I'd like to start with you, if I could, please. My question to you is, how has it been? How are you doing currently? How is it with your work? How is it with your home? And how is it with your family of origin? How are you doing during this hopeful and rise up, brutal time? How are you doing?
Yeah, it's and thank you, Shirley. It's been quite a roller coaster, I must say. At the very beginning of the outbreak, I came down with symptoms, and for me, not only did I come down with symptoms, a lot of my family member came out with symptoms, and also we've lost some people from the pandemic. And in the meantime, while needing to take care of myself to get through this pandemic, also finding ways to show up for the people that I serve, So after coming out of the COVID myself, I really needed to find ways to gear up so I can show up, right? Because I didn't have time to stay down too long. And even as I was having symptoms, I was still working, and I didn't know that that's what was happening for me until it really knocked me down and I had to completely stop, right? I had to stop parenting. I had to stop with whatever I was doing needed to come to a halt. And I really needed to go inward and reach to the ancestors, to the spirits for some guidance to get through, right? So since I've gotten better, I've been working nonstop. And I found a wave. There was a surge of almost like, all the ancestors showed up and told me, we've been through pandemics before. Just be the vessel that we need you to be, and we'll take care of the rest. So that got me through the past month, and then the recent killings, the murders that happened, and it's so familiar, but it just really knocked me out. That one really, really knocked me out, where I still need to show up for my clients. I still need to show up for my family and the community. But there was something about this one that was different. It was almost like, it felt like I had a balanced scale on my shoulder that was weighing me down. And my body actually started having physical symptoms from it all, right? From the injustice, and then seeing the outcry is something that I'm used to seeing growing up in Haiti, right? People are always taking to the streets because of the oppression. And as you ask me about how they're doing, they've been bracing for COVID themselves. And really, because a lot of them rely on the people overseas to support them, and because of the job loss that the economic hit that the Haitian community have hit here, the people in Haiti are feeling it. They're feeling the impact, where they cannot get the support that they were receiving from their relatives in the States, right? And the job market, the kids are not going to school at all. So there is no remote learning happening out of the education system, completely stopped, right? So people are really struggling and suffering. And my family here, all of them are essential workers. So a lot of them got sick, and they're all back including my mom, who's going out every day to work. So it's almost like my family didn't get to pause. Like, we all had to continue to show up. And it's, it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a journey. Thank you. You're muted. You're muted. Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Thank you. I've heard this no pause showing up over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Damalia, my God, you've been at it so hard. Tell us about your world and how it's going.
Yeah, speaking of no pause, it's been a very similar experience, being an essential worker myself. I work in a hospital in Brooklyn. So, and it's a hospital that serves 90% African-American, Afro-Caribbean population. So it's been a really intense journey. In my role, I help with crisis management, emotional support for staff, physicians, nurses, all the workers that help with transporting dead bodies, for example. I'm on the front lines with them, providing psychological, emotional support. So that gets to be a lot too, and a lot of holding that I end up doing, which is intense. It takes its tolls. I find myself coming home some evenings and just laying on the floor in the living room, and our floor it feels like laying in trees because it's wooden floors. So I just lay flat on my back and just look up. It's
at the trees.
The trees are holding me up. Yeah, that's how it feels. And I could fall asleep. It's really, really helpful. One of the other things, talking to my mom really helps. My family still lives in Jamaica. So they haven't been facing it as intensely as we are here in New York. And one of the things my mom talks about is, she's doing a lot of farming and trying to create a self-sustaining system of her own food and herbs. And exactly. And so she just reminds me how we need to get reconnected to what we know, right? We know what herbs to help us take care of our immune systems. We know what to help us get through rough times, and we know how to do this. So my mom really helps ground me in, I'm doing this, let me share with you my knowledge in medicines, and you got this, you know?
Awesome. Thank you,
It's
Damalia.
been really helpful. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful share. Thank you. And Isabelle, Adon. Hello, Isabelle. How are you doing from the Dominican Republic?
Yeah. So let me just say that what I'm noticing here is that the three of us, Damalia and myself, are actually people of color and from the African diaspora, but we also Caribbean. And so the experience of African American here hasn't been my own in the sense of I am an immigrant, but it's been my own because I'm a lesbian, I'm Black, I'm Latina, I'm a woman, and I have two sons. And so I live with that fear every day that one of my sons will be, Eric Garner, Akai Gary, that will be George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. So every day, that fear, it's alive for me. And
for my grandsons as well, because we're race as well.
Yeah.
My daughter-in-law is Black from Texas. So
yeah.
So every day you live with the load of that.
Every single day. And so what I think for me, what my experience has been right now is that these two places have converged, the pandemic and this ongoing racism and structural racism, and have come to just kind of like explode. It's like a big explosion.
How is it in your workplace? Because you're also a healthcare worker.
I work with young people, and they are, to use the language of IFRT, a lot of them are frozen. They are like paralyzed, and some of them are living with rage, and some of them have just turned it off because of their own past history of trauma and traumatic experience. It's just too much. And I also, a lot of the young people I work with live in marginalized neighborhood. And the neighborhood where I lived at before, where I lived at since 1978, was completely destroyed. And for the last few nights, I have trouble sleeping because all I keep thinking about is how it was when I came here in the late 70s, and there was fire raging everywhere, and the Bronx was completely destroyed. And I don't know, it's just so much. It's so much.
Are you all willing to do a little IFOT exercise?
Yes.
Absolutely.
The exercise. See if we can take a pause. We want to take a pause. So let's all take a pause and just allow our bones to rest for a moment. God knows the fatigue has been incredible. So just take a pause. And what we want to do is to go in to find that place where our breath is being oppressed by structural racism and the onslaught of many, many pandemics. There's a place where our breath is kind of in a lockdown. So just notice it's in there somewhere, whether it's in your chest and anybody out there watching this, if you want to take this pause with us, please do. Just noticing inward, just where that spot is that is oppressed, systemically oppressed. Black Lives Matter oppressed. And just see how far you need to go back. Let's track that back to a time when that was not so. When that breath was full of oxygen and full of the smells of the life around you in a non-oppressed state that does exist ancestrally. See if you can go back to the ancestors and see where that breath was alive, how many generations you have to go back where there's freedom to breathe. Take your time and then take in that ancestral breath of fresh air. To allow that ancestor and those ancestors before then to auctionate you, however that word might be, to bring you breath. No more knee on the neck. And meet up with those ancestors or that particular ancestor that walks with you now. And have a full 30 seconds of oxygen into those cells in your body, your bones, into your tendons, into your throat and your back. And all around you, allow it to spread, that air to spread larger than you, into your families, into your homelands, into Minnesota, into Duluth, and across the land. Stretch it big, stretch it wide. And I know this is a short exercise. B, when you're back in the room, if you could share where that took you, what happened, and does it inform you?
Yeah, initially I felt it in my chest, like the constriction, which when I tracked it, it really took me back, way back to a remote village in Africa. It took me back before colonization, before enslavement, before it all, before the genocide. It took me back to what it was like. So it was in a small village, and then the breeze, there was an elder that showed up, and there was so much peace. There was peace throughout, and the children were out playing, and everyone was carefree. It just reminded me that, in the midst of it all, there is still that place there that I can still go to. There's still the ancestors that continues to walk with me and doing this work, right? Like, because they've been through, and I have a breath there. So thank you for that. That was real. That was delicious. And I really needed that breath.
and what I also hear is it gives you energy to keep going.
Yes,
That's delicious.
Great reminder. Yes, thank you. Thank you
Damalia,
for that.
Damalia.
Yes. Similarly, that was really, really delicious. For me, it happened at first, a constriction in the throat and in the chest. So like can't speak, how to say this, especially at work. How much do I language this at work in a place where you have to watch, how explicit you are. It showed up as a constriction in the chest as well. And so when I went back, similarly took me back to a time prior to colonization, to genocide. There were mango trees. I was on a veranda somewhere, not sure. There's this one elder that came forward, and their eyes, you know how eyes glimmer, like you could see there's so much story, so much hope, so much. It just went on for generations, those eyes, that depth and that glimmer.
That generation of hope.
Yeah.
What a thing to bring you.
Yeah.
To bring you all the hope that's needed right now.
To bring me all the hope that's needed. And so really understanding that, yes, we're still in the struggle, right? We're still fighting for our rights. Racism is still real and we're still fighting against it. And there's so much hope and forward movement, which is really, really sweet.
I hope that helps you this week as you
Yes.
move forward. Awesome. And Isabelle, how was this exercise for you?
Thank you. It was really helpful. And initially there was this sense of being almost in water just up to my nose, and coming up for air from that water. And then somehow I was in the Dominican Republic, but way before time, when the Arawaks and Tainos were there. And then my great-great-grandfather showed up, and I just happened to have a picture of him on my phone, and he passed away over 50 years ago. And so that's 5 generations that I know of about my great-great-grandfather.
Yeah. 5 generations to get the oxygen.
Yeah.
Wow. And is there a picture of him? Is that easy to find right now?
Yes, I have it on my phone. Here he is.
Right up.
There he is with his great-great-granddaughter, who lives here. And we were just talking about a few days ago.
How will this inform you? How does this inform your week? Does it help your body?
Even right now, there's a sense of ease.
Awesome.
And being held. And that I'm not here doing this work alone,
right.
That there's a collective that is going on, and that this work is done in relationship, not just with myself, with my client, but with all that came before me and those that will come after me. Yes. And that is just beautiful.
Delicious. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Shirley.
Could we end with 2 words? And then I'll shut the recording off and we get to continue to be delicious together for a minute or 2.
Yeah.
So my 2 words for this morning, or this afternoon really, compassion and connection.
Mine are collective healing.
And mine are collective survival.
And mine are ground in ancestral, and I know it's more than 2, but I have to honor them.
Oh, you bad woman. That's beautiful. I love you all. You know that.
Thank
you.
We love you.
Sweet to see you.
We're so lucky to have the best teams in the world in IFOT, where we never stop being.
We can't stop. No. We can't stop. We cannot stop.
No. Totally in love with one another.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the most non-toxic workplace IFOT that I've ever met in my lifetime. and so global too. Miigwech to everyone. And we hope you have a good week. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.